Hello, everybody. On behalf of Knowledge Oman, I'd like to welcome you all to our fourth webinar. And we're so excited to host both Roy and Roger in this fourth webinar. Now, in today's session, everyone, I'd like to welcome Roy Sheppard, who is former BBC News anchor, specialist conference moderator, interviewer, author of many books on personal business and personal communication.
Roger Fisk was one of Barack Obama's political strategists, and he recruited and led a large team. Roger is actually acknowledged as being one of the key strategists to put Barack Obama into the White House for 2 terms.
Roy, thank you so much. And thank you to the London Speaker Bureau and Knowledge Oman. Salam alaikum to everyone who's tuning in. Technology and information are changing almost daily. If you're not consulting and reaching out to the target demographic and involving them in the contours of how you're going to engage them, then you're wasting time, you're wasting money, and you're not going to hit your numbers.
What mistakes have you seen organizations, whether they're political or corporate, what mistakes do they make when it comes to strategy that should really be addressed early on?
In a political context, one of the biggest mistakes I see is when an entire campaign culture is built around an individual who still doesn't necessarily know what it is that they want to go out and present as their vision. Be authentic and just be honest and direct, because once you, A, get people's attention, but then B, that they think you're actually believable, that they think you're being honest and sincere and that they're getting the real person that you are, then you can move forward and start to have some communication and trust, and then ultimately a business transaction. But if you come at it dishonest, if you try to present yourself as something that you are not, you're just setting up a breach, you're setting up a rupture, and sooner or later, what you really are is going to come up against the public persona that you're trying to shop. And A, it won't work, and B, you will have wasted a lot of time and resources.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced relating to the campaigns, and how did you manage them?
Remember that the traditional media and the traditional tools of media like radio and television and newspapers are best used when they are enhanced and are part of a social media strategy, just as social media is best used when it's force multiplied with traditional media as well. Reach out to a number of different demographics, reach out in kind of culturally appropriate ways and touch them where they're getting their information, but still using both old and new tools and not depending on either. Because if you just depend on one, then you're missing out on a full spectrum engagement campaign. And that's how marketers need to do it nowadays to win.
How is artificial intelligence and machine learning helping in this process?
At some point, you start to cross the Rubicon from AI anticipating what that individual is going to do to then AI kind of guiding what that individual is going to do. And so to the individual in the online experience, it can feel like the individual is making decisions, but AI is actually, providing a framework so that individual is getting walked down a road and they don't even know they're getting walked down that road because it all still feels like they're clicking and making their decisions. But AI is actually already anticipated 7 and 8 and 10 moves down the road.
How can marketeers transform the cultural need for real world connections and word of mouth marketing digitally with the same set of principles and value system?
So all of us are having to kind of engage in this almost purely digital world while still trying to pick up on kind of the broader human signals that we all send, because that's ultimately how a lot of us communicate. If you're just, the good news is if you're just starting out, then you have an opportunity to try to kind of establish a very authentic and honest voice as social media grows in Oman.
When you have social media that's particularly relevant, it's going to grow.
The last thing you want to do is blast a bunch of information out there, get people's attention for 30 seconds, then they start to lean towards you, they start to express some interest, and then when they come back to you with a reply or a question, there's silence. So if you acknowledge that you have a target demographic and you acknowledge that they need to learn something in order to start bringing them down the road towards your product or service, then why don't we make that education curve and that process part of your marketing.
It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you
Oh,
very
no,
much.
Roy, yeah, and it was your able hand that made it so. But thank you to the London Speaker Bureau, and thank you to Knowledge Oman.